So welcome. This is the Charleston Gazette Mail editorial board candidate interview for the House of Delegates 40th District. We are Daily Mail and Gazette Mail reporters and editors and Daily Mail opinion page editors. We're just going to we'll keep this to about half an hour.
Okay.
Half-hour discussion with you. We will each introduce ourselves and then ask you to introduce yourself and give about 2 to 3 minutes as to why you're running, and then we'll ask the questions, have a conversation.
Okay.
I'm Whitney Bazat. I'm an editorial writer for the Daily Mail opinion page.
I'm Kelly Merritt, Daily Mail opinion page editor.
Phil Cadler, State House reporter.
Rob Myers, executive editor.
Nice to meet you all.
And Kenny Kemp is our photographer.
Nice to meet you. I'm Melissa Ricks Huffman. I am an elementary school teacher at Bridge Elementary School in Elkview. I teach 3rd grade. This is my 8th year with Kanawha County Schools. Prior to becoming a teacher, I spent 15 years as an administrative law paralegal. I worked six and a half years of those with the Office of Judges here in Charleston during the time of the backlog and the crisis with all workers' comp claims. So we were part of the team that got to help create the new policies and get that backlog taken care of. I am running for office simply because I'm an angry West Virginian right now. Cannot continue to watch the working men and women of this state be attacked and the priorities of our state be put in a poor order.
Okay. I will add that this district, the opponent, the incumbent, is Republican Tim Armstead, who is also Speaker of the House of Delegates. And Mr. Armstead has personal business out of town. He cannot be here today. So you're running. I must say, you don't appear as an angry West Virginian. I get the feeling you don't hold a lot of anger.
You haven't heard me speak yet.
But you mentioned the working West Virginians. There's a train of thought that if West Virginia had been a good place for working West Virginians, we would have had a lot more West Virginians working. But West Virginia continually ranks on low end of a lot of scales in terms of job rate, number of people working, new job creation, and many others, and many other such measures. So, I think some people make the argument that there was already a war on West Virginia employees and employers, and so they're trying to just change some habits and get more people working.
Right. However, the 2 laws that were passed in the last 2 years of session, right to work and repealing the prevailing wage, has pretty much set back the working class to the point of almost to, we'll be looking at company housing and company script. Right to work is not right. It's wrong. It's wrong for West Virginia. It will cause tremendous cuts in pay. It will cause tremendous unsafe work conditions. It will allow out-of-state companies to bring in their own workers while our workers are unemployed. And good Lord knows we don't need any more of that. And prevailing wage sets the wage for everyone. It's not just for the unions or anything else. It sets the wage for what other people are going to be making. That's all been cut. That's all been gone. We couldn't afford to lose much more than what we had already lost. So,
what steps would you propose as a legislator to improve job growth in West Virginia?
We need to start thinking outside of the box. We cannot continue on the path that we're going from either side. We've got to start being a little more innovative, a little more risk-taking and daring, and look at things differently. Not be afraid to take chances. I know one of our greatest assets is our tourism industry. It's kind of not up to where it used to be. It's still great. Skiing's great. Whitewater rafting's great. We need to create an area where we're bringing people in, where people want to come here to spend their money, which therefore provides jobs and revenue for our state. Looking at an area, just as an example, as Pigeon Forge, that area. You know, that place is booming. People flock down there all the time. Why can't we have something like that here? We're just as beautiful. We're one of the most beautiful states in the country, as far as I'm concerned. We have the most beautiful mountains and wonderful people. We could do the exact same thing and bring revenue into the state here. Another issue that I've thought about as far as revenue for the state and taxes, and to help with, I know you guys haven't asked me this question yet, but I'm sure that it's probably coming. You know, the coal severance tax needs to be brought back up to where it was. We also are sitting on a gold mine of this oil and gas boom right now. Pipelines are going in all across our state. Well, here's the thing. Why continue to let those companies rape us of our natural resources and we not reap the benefits of it? We should exercise a severance tax on anything that is pumped out of our ground. If they export it, guess what? You pay an export tax. If they choose not to export it and they choose to refine it here and build refineries here for the product, which employs thousands of West Virginians, plus would bring in more revenue for us, then they get a tax break for being here.
Just to clarify, there is a severance tax on oil and gas, is there not?
It needs to be more beneficial.
I know there is. I don't.
Yeah.
Phil, do you know?
It needs to be more beneficial for
I
us.
don't know the rate off the top of my head, but there is a severance tax on natural gas.
But a tax break
For the companies if they choose to build here and create jobs in West Virginia. Another way to create revenue and jobs in the state is education. Companies don't want to go somewhere and build their factories or their corporations if there's a poor education system. We need to start allowing our teachers to teach, and to teach reading, math, science, social studies, not teach to the test, not worry about this test. We're testing our kids and we're testing our teachers to death.
In your introduction, you mentioned that you were part of the team that worked on the workers' comp backlog. Do you see any other inefficiencies in state government? And if so, how do you think the legislature can best go about fixing those inefficiencies?
I'll be honest with you, I've been out of state government for so long, I'm not certain what each agency is going through right now. I'm sure there are probably areas that can be combined to cut costs as long as it is, you know, fiscally responsible to do so, and it's not going to hurt jobs and put more West Virginians out of work. I would have to look at that in deeper detail and really get into it and look. But I do know at the time with workers' comp, someone filed a workers' comp claim, and this again was in the early 90s when I worked there. It was a 5, 6, 7, 10-year process before these people would get any benefits or receive anything. Half the time they died before anything happened. You know, when we stepped in and we worked through it, worked with a outside company that trained us to facilitate and create new processes on how to process the claims and get the claims in and out quickly. And we did accomplish that. So things like that can be accomplished. I was a part of it. I understand how that works. But as for knowing exactly what agencies are having backlogs right now, I don't.
Being a teacher and being, I guess, a student, you grew up a student of public schools as well as private schools, we heard. And now being a teacher. Yesterday in candidate meeting, we had a conversation with a couple of candidates. And one candidate, you know, West Virginia has 55 county boards of education.
Right.
And one candidate had suggested that maybe consolidate, instead of having district boards or district education districts along county lines, why not consolidate to 10 or 15 counties and have just 15 county districts or 15 districts, I should
Right.
say. And then I brought up that we've had one of the Daily Mail columnists has suggested forget fewer county districts. How about more smaller independent school districts that have more flexibility? Any thoughts on how the education system should be structured to improve education and get back to letting teachers teach?
First and foremost, they need to get the teachers' opinions and come to us. We're the ones in the trenches. We're the ones that know what works for our students and what doesn't work for our students. You know, we get a little tired of these people sitting in ivory towers that have never been in education making choices for how we're going to teach our students. It's no wonder we're last in education all the time. They don't listen to the teachers. You know, teaching, people look at teachers with such, I don't know, disdain sometimes. We're one of the few professions that just getting a 4-year degree isn't enough. We have to get certified. We have to take an exam similar to the bar exam that is deadly. It will drive you nuts. It will make me cry. But we're one of the few professions that has to do that. The other professions that have to do that get paid very, very well, you know, and we don't. I bring home $2,000 a month. I graduated magna cum laude from school. I busted my butt raising a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old while I did it. And, you know, people just look down on us like we don't know what we're doing. Guess what? We do know what we're doing. We know exactly what we're doing, but nobody asks. So.
Have any reservations about if you're to be elected and be in the legislature, you're missing much of this first half of much of the school year?
I will ensure that my students are taken care of. I have a long list of very dear friends that would be a wonderful replacement for me on the short term. So I'm not concerned with that.
I apologize. You being the only person, you're going to the spot. Most of the
That's
other
okay.
candidates get a break. So
That's
somebody
okay.
else gets to answer the
That's
question.
all right. I teach 3rd graders. I can handle it. Trust me.
What do you think is harder? What do you think would be easier, being in the legislature or teaching 3rd grade?
Well, let me just tell you, I decided after being a paralegal for as long as I was that and I apologize if anybody in here is an attorney, but that dealing with attorneys for as long as I had the most experience dealing with kindergartners that I had ever had in my life. So that's why I went to school to be a teacher.
Well, Mr. Armstead has worked his way up to speaker. He's been in there for a long time, and why do you think he needs to be replaced now?
He cannot lead. I'm sorry. Mr. Armstead is a lovely person. We've spoken several times over this campaign. However, his inability and ineffectiveness to lead has cost this state and these taxpayers over $600,000 for the special session for a budget that should have been taken care of and taken top priority. However, there were other things on the agenda that took top priority. And I'll go ahead and say this because I've already made other people mad by saying it, but raw milk, not fully funding PEIA, pushing the war against the working families with right to work and prevailing wage, repealing prevailing wage, pushing the RFRA, which was completely ridiculous. Those things took top priority over figuring out what the budget was going to be. And his own members, you know, he fought with his own caucus. He can't lead. I'm sorry. It needs to change. It desperately needs to change.
If you were not Speaker of the House, but just a member of the legislature, do you think you'd feel this way, or would you be running?
I think the person that is Speaker of the House should be able to lead both parties and do the job that they are there to do. Mr. Armstead has been in office for a very, 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 very long time, mostly unopposed in our district. I haven't seen a whole lot of benefit for our district out of it. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I would feel on that.
Who are some of your political heroes, so to speak, over the years?
Honestly, I really have not been, I am not a politician. I'm not. Up until the last few years, I'm honest, I've told you what you see is what you get from me. I didn't really pay much attention to politics. It just didn't seem to, well, it doesn't affect me. And then all of a sudden I realized, hey, it does affect you. And it affects a lot of things, and you need to do something about it. And it was, so I haven't had political heroes. I choose the lesser of the two evils when it comes to presidential races. I don't stick to one straight party line. I've always been able to choose, one side, I'll choose this person from this side and this person from this side. And, you choose the best person you feel is going to do the job. Has been always my opinion.
Been any improvements in the last session, or the last two sessions, I guess, last 2 years or so, that you do think were good or good changes that were improvements to the state?
There have been some good things that have come through. I have a list, actually.
Okay.
If you don't mind me
Okay,
announcing
go right
that.
ahead. You're on.
Of course, anything that has to do with the children and schools, the school bus law, that had to be, something had to be taken care of with that. Why we even had to go there with people being that ignorant, I don't know, but thank God that's in place and there are tighter regulations on that and penalties. I was not totally opposed to the concealed carry. I'm very proud to say the NRA has given me a rating of an A-, and I have no record for them to base that on, so that's very nice. I like that. There have been other things. The main focus, though, for me was the cigarette tax, the small increase in the cigarette tax to help with the deficit. That wasn't too terribly bad. I smoke. Didn't bother me. If it helps, if it does something for the people of West Virginia, then by all means, let's do it. So, if it's going to help with our budget and to get funding for infrastructure and our highways and our road systems, which I don't know if any of you have visited the Elkview area lately, and especially since the flood. Driving on those roads right now is not a very pleasant experience. So we need to get some roads fixed around here.
Do you think we should move the cigarette tax up to $1 a pack?
I don't know. For me personally, it wouldn't bother me. It really wouldn't. But that's me personally. You have to think of the whole and not just as of one. So that would be something that would have to be looked into.
I'll ask Dawn's question. Where you mentioned specifically the coal severance and the oil and gas severance tax to be increased. Any particular taxes that you would look to increase or any particular cuts in the state that you would do to straighten out the...
As coming from as an outsider and not someone that's been in politics before or really knows the ins and outs completely of state government, other than my experience with workers' comp at the time, there will be things that will have to be looked at. There's going to be, I guarantee you, with the mess that's been left, there's going to be some hard decisions to be made. Our budget is not fiscally responsible right now. We still have the issue with PEIA. That's got to be funded. That's 255,000 West Virginians. And the thing with PEIA, as a teacher, I take a lower pay, but I have a good benefits package. I don't have to worry about insurance for my children, or my mother who worked for the state, who retired from state government, who, you know, has PEIA as a retiree. You know, now with the increase, it's difficult. It's difficult to pay for those things. So there are things that are going to have to be looked at, and hard decisions will have to be made. But the bottom line is to keep it as far away from the pockets of the working men and women of this state as possible, without hurting them and hurting those pocketbooks.
What are your thoughts on teacher salaries and how to make them more competitive?
First of all, I think teachers need to be given due credit before anybody's going to look at giving them pay increases. We certainly deserve them. We're one of the lowest paid states that there is. I got my teaching degree in Kentucky. I could have stayed in Kentucky and taught and made a fortune, a lot more than, not a fortune, but a lot more than what I'm making now. Or even moved up to northern Kentucky and crossed over into Ohio and then really made good money. But I chose to come back here. I want to be here. And I chose to come back here and be on Elk River with my kids and these families that I know, despite the low pay. We need to give teachers credit where credit is due. We need to recruit, make it a viable option for teachers to come from other states to be here. I know 10 years ago, North Carolina, although their system now is not very well, but 10 years ago, North Carolina had a whole page set up for recruiting. They would help pay your moving expenses. They would set you up. They gave you a bonus to come and teach in North Carolina. You know, maybe we need to look at options like that, make it more interesting and economically enticing for teachers to come and be here. And reward our teachers for, you know, getting the extra hours that we have to get. You know, every year we have to recertify. So every year I have to take graduate classes. One of the other few professions that has to do that, along with lawyers and doctors. I have to take graduate classes. I just signed up in the middle of this campaign for 2 graduate courses that I have to take now because I have to recertify by next June. So in the midst of all of this, then I'm also going to be going back to school. So I hope I answered your question. Did I? Sometimes I have a tendency to go off on tangents.
You briefly touched upon RFRA, which was a key issue for your opponent. In fact, he even left the podium to speak in defense of the bill in the House. What are your objections in particular to RFRA legislation?
I'm sorry. We already have religious freedom. That was nothing but a guise for discrimination and bigotry. And I will not stand for anything that has to do with anything like that. Absolutely not. You know, the way that was set up, or the way that it was being pushed, you know, this lovely lady could walk into a diner and, oh, I'm sorry, it's against my religion, I don't serve pregnant women. You know, it could have been, it could be anything. It just opens the door for, you know, the civil rights movement to be knocked back 100 years too. We've come too far, and I don't think that West Virginia wants that kind of stigma on top of them, that we're not accepting and loving to everybody that wants to be here.
Anything else? Sir? Good.
I'm good.
We will conclude, give you, 2-minute or so closing statement if you like.
Okay. I appreciate you all having me here. Thank you very much. Like I said before, I'm not a politician. I'm a mom and a teacher, and I think there are things in this state that could be made so much better. And for one thing, I'm sick and tired of being on the bottom of every list that there possibly could be. And I don't think we have to be that way. I think we can pull it up and make ourselves, a place where other states look to and say, wow, we want to be like West Virginia, not the hillbilly jokes and well, they got a great football team. When we are so much more than that. And that's the bottom line. So, thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, I appreciate it.